For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner join me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Morning.
The SASSA scandal is uncovering a lot of irregularities, as was with the case, with the Nkandla case and other state entities. Is this normal for a state?
I can't speak for every state, but the level of irregularity that we see in public life in South Africa seems to be very, very high, as manifested at a quantitative level with the extent of unauthorized expenditure, but also the failure to observe basic norms. For example, the SASSA lawyers deliver their papers on time. That's the second they get a second deadline, they don't deliver them on time again. That's not an irregularity of the sort which seems to occur all the time with way in which the state functions through its various organs, through its state-owned enterprises. And irregularity is not the same as corruption. It may well be that some of the irregularities are due to lack of capacity. Someone said to me that, they know what they're supposed to do. It's not correct that they are doing it innocently. But I think it is possible that people, when you are introduced into local government, you don't know how to handle finances. Now, you don't necessarily steal, but you don't appreciate that you can't simply allocate something to a good cause. There has to be a provision in the budget which enables the money to be allocated to this or that. So the irregularities of very high level, I don't have the figures in my head, which the Auditor General uncovers at national level, at provincial level, and at local government level. Some of these, there's about 1/3 of the, according to some material I've seen, about 1/3 of these are proven to be corruption, so that we don't know what the rest consists of. Whether it is corrupt activities that have not been charged or not yet been proven, or whether they are just malperformances. But even if it's not corruption, it means that regularity suggests that this is the way the state and certain entities must function in order to perform their duties. If they don't function in that way, it means that instead of taking a straight line, the shortest way of reaching a destination, there are zigzags along the way and inefficiencies and also illegal activities. So in the case of other countries, in the UK, for example, in the Nordic countries, you have a professional stratum, which is the civil service, which has passed certain examinations in order to hold certain positions. They tend to be fairly conservative. They tend to know what's going on and remain there even if there's a new minister. So that this is not the same in the United States, where the new president tends to appoint people close to him as heads of certain departments and things like that. So that in the UK, you have in the Foreign Office, for example, a very professional operation where people have spent a long time doing the same thing, so they know when the minister comes in and he wants to know there's a crisis in Burundi, there is a group who deal with Burundi. Now, in some other countries, and I think South Africa is one of these, someone works on China for 2 years, then he's moved to international organizations, then the person is moved to something quite different. So that institutional memory is very important for the functioning and regular functioning of bureaucracies. Of course, there is the conservative aspect is problematic in that people say the way we do it is this, and there's a sort of reluctance to see innovation that could make the institution function more effectively. And I think this is especially important with something like intelligence, where you can't keep on watching a certain place and have the same criteria for judging whether something poses a danger or is going to be unstable and things like that. Because sometimes things that you think are harmless, like religious groups, can actually be leading forces in creating instability. So regularity does not mean rigidity, but you do need functioning which is predictable, which is in line with the law, which enables the resources to be used in the most effective way to achieve the goals of making a better life for all the citizens of the country. And I think South Africa is a highly irregular state at every level, and it is illustrated obviously very dramatically in the social grants crisis. The Chief Justice was just exasperated. He couldn't really believe that this was being allowed.
So what can be done to remedy this state of affairs, and especially to limit and ultimately maybe eliminate corruption?
You know, what you need, and I'm speaking not just about corruption, but just irregularity, which can lead to inefficiency and malfunctioning. The example needs to start at the top. Unfortunately, in South Africa, the example doesn't start at the top. The example at the top is actually one of great irregularity and probably corruption as well, in that the president is himself potentially facing at least 783 charges of corruption, fraud, money laundering, and he may face more. So we have this problem that we don't have a cadre of people at the top who are concerned about ethical matters, who actually have a sense of responsibility about what is owed to the population. You know, the president has got a ridiculous argument about the social grants, that we must all keep cool because April the 1st hasn't arrived. You only really start worrying when the disaster comes into effect. But already there is evidence of extensive irregularity along the way, which I think any responsible leader would have paid attention to.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Crema Media's Polity about level of irregularity in state practices.